There's something happening right now in the spiritual realm that you need to know about. While you've been praying, waiting, and wondering if he's even real, or if you somehow missed him. Heaven has been orchestrating something so precise, so carefully timed, that when you finally see it unfold, you're going to understand why every delay, every closed door, and every moment of silence was absolutely necessary. But here's what God is showing me that I need you to hear. Your future spouse isn't far away in some distant season you can't yet imagine. He's close, closer than you think. And the reason you haven't heard from him yet, the reason there's been this stretching silence that's tested your faith and made you question everything, isn't because he doesn't exist or because God forgot about you. It's because he's scared. And what I'm about to share with you in this message is going to shift the way you've been seeing this entire season. Because the strategy heaven is giving you isn't about chasing him down or forcing a door open. It's about something far more powerful, something that works with God's timing instead of against it. And it's going to position you to receive the breakthrough that's already in motion. If this resonates in your spirit right now, if something in you is saying, I needed to hear this today, I want you to type in the comments right now, I trust God's timing. Let that be your declaration of faith as we go deeper into this word together. And make sure you subscribe and turn on notifications, because the messages coming to this channel in the next few weeks are going to be specifically for people in this exact season. And you don't want to miss what God is about to reveal. Now, let me tell you what the Holy Spirit has been showing me about what's really happening behind the scenes. When we talk about your future spouse being scared, we're not talking about a man who's weak or incapable or running from his destiny. We're talking about a man who's being prepared by God, who's aware on some level, whether consciously or in his spirit, that something significant is about to shift in his life. And that awareness, combined with his own journey of healing, his own past disappointments, his own fears about getting it wrong again or not being ready, has created this pause, this silence, a space that feels unbearable to you but is actually sacred to heaven. Asterisk scripture tells us in Ecclesiastes chapter 3 that there is a time for everything and a season for every activity under the heavens. It's a time to search and a time to give up, a time to keep and a time to throw away, a time to be silent and a time to speak. And right now, in this specific season, God is honoring both timelines, yours and his. You're in a season of waiting, of preparation, of becoming the woman who can handle what's coming. And he's in a season of silence, of internal wrestling, of being refined in ways that only God can see. In these two seasons, as painful as they feel when they're not yet converging, are preparing both of you for a collision of destinies that's going to be so much healthier, so much more whole, so much more aligned with God's best than anything either of you could have forced into existence on your own timeline. But here's where it gets really specific. And this is where I need you to pay close attention, because this is the part that's going to change how you navigate the coming weeks and months. The fear your future spouse is dealing with isn't just generic cold feet or commitment issues, though it might look like that on the surface. God is showing me that for many of you watching this right now, this man has been through something. Maybe it was a previous relationship that left him wounded. Maybe it was a broken engagement. Maybe it was a pattern of dating the wrong people and finally realizing he can't trust his own judgment anymore. Maybe it was watching his parents' marriage fall apart and internalizing beliefs about relationships that have nothing to do with truth and everything to do with trauma. Or maybe he's simply at a place in his life where he knows he's not yet the man he needs to be, and instead of rushing into something he can't sustain, he's actually choosing to wait, to heal, to get right with God first. And if that's what's happening, you need to recognize that as a sign of wisdom, not weakness. Proverbs chapter 19 verse 2 says, "Desire without knowledge is not good, and whoever makes haste with his feet misses his way." This man, wherever he is right now, is learning not to make haste. He's learning not to rush into something just because the desire is there. And while that creates a season of waiting for you, it's also creating the foundation for something that won't crumble the moment life gets hard. You don't want a man who jumps in unprepared. You want a man who knows what he's stepping into and has counted the cost. You want a man who's dealt with his past so he doesn't drag it into your future? You want a man who's learned to hear God's voice for himself so he's not just following? You are going with the flow, but is actually being led by the Spirit into covenant. Now, I know what some of you are thinking. You're thinking, but I've been ready. I've been praying. I've been preparing. I've been doing the work. Why do I have to wait for him to catch up? And that's a valid feeling. But here's what God wants you to understand. This isn't about one person being ahead and the other being behind. This is about divine orchestration that's considering factors you can't see. Think about the story of Isaac and Rebekah in Genesis chapter 24. Abraham sent his servant to find a wife for Isaac, and the servant prayed for a very specific sign. He asked God to show him the right woman by having her offer water not just to him, but to all his camels. And Rebekah showed up and did exactly that. But here's what's beautiful. Rebekah didn't know Isaac was waiting for her. She didn't know that her act of kindness, her character in that ordinary moment, was being observed as a divine confirmation. She was just being who she was, faithful. In the small things, generous in her service, available to be used by God in whatever way he saw fit. And Isaac, on his end, was waiting, trusting his father's process. Not out trying to force something to happen on his own. That's the posture God is asking you to take right now. Not passivity, not giving up, but faithful presence, faithful character. Faithful service in the season you're in, trusting that the one who's meant to find you is being guided by the same God who's guiding you. And this is where we get into what you actually need to do, because doing nothing isn't the answer either. There's a very specific spiritual strategy for this moment. And if you can embrace it, you're going to see movement that surprises you. First, I cannot emphasize this enough. You need to stop focusing on him and start focusing on your own alignment with God. I know that sounds like generic advice, and maybe you've heard it before, but I'm not talking about just going through religious motions. I'm talking about getting so rooted in your identity as a daughter of the King that whether he shows up tomorrow or a year from tomorrow, your peace isn't shaken. Because here's what happens when you're desperate. You emit a spiritual frequency that actually repels the very thing you're praying for. Desperation makes you chase. It makes you settle. It makes you try to manipulate circumstances or force. Conversations are read into every little sign until you're exhausted and confused. But when you're at peace, when you're confident in God's goodness, regardless of your relationship status, when you're thriving in your current season, instead of just surviving it while you wait for the next one, that's when you become a magnet. For the kind of man who's ready for covenant, not just companionship. Let me tell you something else God is revealing about this season. There's spiritual warfare involved in this delay, but not in the way you might think. The enemy isn't necessarily attacking your future spouse directly to keep him from you. What the enemy is doing is far more subtle and far more effective if you don't recognize it. He's attacking your peace. He's planting seeds of doubt in your mind. He's making you question if you heard God correctly. He's bringing up past disappointments and trying to convince you that this time will be no different. He's making you obsess over timelines and compare your journey to everyone else's. He's tempting you to take matters into your own hands, to force a door, to reach out when you know in your spirit you're supposed to be still. Because here's what. The enemy knows. If he can get you to move in the flesh, if he can get you to operate out of fear instead of faith, he can delay or even derail what God is trying to bring together in his perfect timing. Romans chapter 12, verse 12, tells us to be joyful in hope, patient in affliction, faithful in prayer. Not joyful only when you see evidence, not patient only when you have a timeline, not faithful only when it feels easy, but consistently, regardless of what you can see with your natural eyes. This is the warfare. Staying joyful when you're still single. Staying patient when everyone around you is getting engaged. Staying faithful in prayer when it feels like your prayers are hitting the ceiling. That's how you win this battle. Not by figuring out his phone number and sending a message. Not by showing up at places you think he might be. Not by trying to orchestrate a chance encounter. But by staying so grounded in God's faithfulness that the enemy can't use your impatience as a weapon against you. Now, here's the part that might challenge you, but I need you to hear it because it's crucial to what's about to unfold. If your future spouse is close but scared, and you're praying for God to move in his heart, you need to make sure that what you're actually praying for is his healing and wholeness, not just his availability to you, because there's a huge difference. Between praying God, make him ready for me, and praying God, make him the man you've called him to be. One of those prayers is self-focused. The other is kingdom-focused. And God always honors kingdom-focused prayers over self-focused ones, even when they take longer to answer. Think about what you're really asking for when you pray for your future spouse. Are you asking God to rush his process so your waiting can end? Or are you asking God to complete his work in him so that when you do come together, you're both whole, healed, and equipped to build something that glorifies God instead of just satisfying your loneliness? I know that's a hard question. I know it's convicting. But this is the kind of spiritual maturity that heaven is looking for in this season. This is the kind of love that looks like Jesus, the kind that's willing to wait, to sacrifice, to put the other person's spiritual well-being ahead of your own immediate desires. And when God sees that in you, when he sees that you're more concerned with his will being done than with your own timeline being met, that's when he starts to accelerate things in ways that will blow your mind. Let me give you a real-life picture of what this looks like because I want you to see how this plays out practically. Imagine there's a woman, let's call her Sarah, who's been praying for her future husband for years. She's done the work. She's healed from her past. She knows who she is in Christ. She's not seeing her out moping. She's actually thriving in her career, serving in her church, investing in friendships, living a full life. But there's still this deep desire for marriage. She's been getting prophetic confirmations left and right that it's close. Then one day she meets someone, let's call him David, and there's an instant connection. They have mutual friends. They end up at the same events. There's clear interest on both sides. They have one really great conversation, and Sarah walks away thinking this is it. This is the one I've been praying for. But then, silence. David doesn't reach out. Weeks go by. A month goes by. Sarah's confused, hurt, wondering if she misread everything. She's tempted to text him, to ask mutual friends about him, to do something, anything, to move this forward. But every time she prays about it, she feels this check in her spirit. Wait, be still. Trust me, so she does. She releases it to God. She keeps living her life. She keeps showing up to the places she's supposed to be. Not to run into him, but because those are her genuine communities. And then 3 months later, she finds out through a mutual friend that during that season of silence, David was going through something major. His father got diagnosed with cancer. He was wrestling with whether to take a job in another state or stay local. He was dealing with anxiety and depression that he'd been ignoring for years, and it all came to a head at once. And in that season, he knew he wasn't in a place to pursue anyone. He knew that if he reached out to Sarah while he was in that mental and emotional space, he would either push her away with his issues or pull her into chaos that wasn't hers to carry. So he made the hard choice to be silent, to deal with his stuff first, to get counseling, to spend time with his father, to make the hard decisions before trying to build something with someone else. Asterisk now, from heaven's perspective, what was happening during those 3 months of silence? Was God ignoring Sarah's prayers? No. Was David the wrong person? No. Was the enemy winning? Absolutely not. What was happening was divine protection and divine preparation. God was protecting Sarah from stepping into a situation that would have overwhelmed her. And God was preparing David to be the man he needed to be before he stepped into covenant. And when they finally reconnected months later, the conversation they had was completely different than the one they would have had if David had reached out during his crisis. He was honest. He was vulnerable. Explained what he'd been through and why he'd gone quiet. Then Sarah, because she'd spent those months staying faithful instead of bitter, was able to receive that explanation with grace and actually respect him more for having the wisdom to wait. That's what I need you to understand about this season you're in. The silence isn't punishment. It's not rejection. It's not proof that it's not going to happen. It's preparation and protection working together to set up something that's going to last. And your job right now isn't to break the silence yourself. Your job is to trust the one who sees the whole picture. The one who knows exactly what your future spouse is dealing with. The one who loves him just as much as he loves you and wants his healing just as much as he wants your happiness. Psalm 27 verse 14 says, "Wait for the Lord, be strong, and take heart, and wait for the Lord." Notice it says that twice. Wait for the Lord, not wait for the man. Not wait for the circumstances to line up. Wait for the Lord. Let him be your focus. Let him be your strength. Let him be the one you're running to for comfort and confirmation, not Instagram profiles or mutual friends or prophetic words from people who don't even know your full story. God is the only one who has the full picture, and he's the only one you can fully trust in this process. So practically, what does this mean you should do? Let me break this down in a way that's actionable, because faith without works is dead, but works without faith is just busyness. First, you need to actively cultivate your own peace. And I don't mean fake it. I don't mean paste on a smile and pretend everything's fine when you're dying inside. I mean actually do the spiritual and emotional work to get to a place where you're okay right now, in this season, in this status, in this waiting. That might mean journaling to process your feelings. It might mean worship sessions where you pour out your heart to God. It might mean counseling to deal with your own past wounds, so you're not bringing unhealed trauma into your future marriage. It might mean setting boundaries with people who keep asking when you're going to get married and making you feel less than because you're still single. Whatever it takes for you to genuinely be at peace, do that. Because peace isn't just a feeling. Peace is a spiritual weapon. Peace is a position of faith. And when you're walking in peace, you're telling the enemy he has no access to your mind and no authority to steal your joy. Second, you need to be intentional about staying in your lane. This is so important. Your lane right now is your own preparation, your own growth, your own responsibilities, your own calling. It's not detective work about him. It's not trying to figure out where he is or what he's doing or when he's going to be ready. That's God's lane. And when you stay in your lane and let God stay in his, everything flows so much smoother. I know it's tempting to try to help God along. I know it's tempting to think, well, if I just reach out and show interest, maybe that'll give him the confidence he needs. But if God hasn't released you to do that, if you're doing it out of anxiety instead of peace, you're stepping out of your lane and into territory that's not yours to manage. And that creates confusion, not clarity. That creates pressure, not connection. Think about the story of Abraham and Sarah in Genesis. God promised them a son. The promise was clear. The timeline was not. And when Sarah got tired of waiting, she decided to help God along by giving her servant Hagar to Abraham so he could have a son through her. And technically it worked. Abraham did have a son through Hagar. But that son, Ishmael, was not the son of promise. That was Hagar's son, born out of human effort and impatience. The son of promise, Isaac, didn't come until years later, when both Abraham and Sarah were way past the age of childbearing, when it was absolutely impossible in the natural and could only happen by divine intervention. And that's when God showed up and fulfilled his promise his way, in his timing, with his supernatural backing. The son born from human effort brought strife and struggle. The son born from divine timing brought joy and legacy. And you get to choose which one you're going to pursue. If you step out ahead of God and force something to happen with a man who's not ready, you might get a relationship, but it's not going to be the one God promised you. It's going to be the Ishmael version. The version that looks right on the surface, but brings heartache and complications you didn't sign up for. But if you wait, if you trust, if you let God bring forth the Isaac version, the promise version in his supernatural timing, you're going to get something that's so much better than anything you could have orchestrated yourself. And everyone who witnesses it is going to know that was God, not you. Asterisk now. Let me talk about the signs that your future spouse is actually close. Because I don't want you to think this is just about blind waiting with no confirmation. God gives signs. He gives confirmation. He gives you glimpses of what's coming, not to make you obsess over it, but to keep your faith alive when the weight feels unbearable. So what are the signs that he's near but scared? First, there's an increasing restlessness in your spirit. Not anxiety, but a holy anticipation. A sense that something's shifting. You might be dreaming about marriage more frequently. You might be noticing couples everywhere you go. And instead of making you bitter, it's actually stirring up hope. You might be getting prophetic words from people who don't even know your situation, all pointing to the same season, the same promise. That's not coincidence. That's God preparing your heart to receive what's coming. Second, you might notice that God has been closing other doors. Situationships that weren't going anywhere suddenly end. Men who were orbiting your life but weren't serious suddenly disappear. Friendships that were draining you or keeping you stuck in old patterns start to fade. This isn't loss. This is God clearing the field. This is Him making room for what's coming by removing what was taking up space that didn't belong to your future. And if you've been experiencing this kind of divine pruning, you need to recognize it as a sign that something new is about to be planted. Third, there's been a shift in your own heart. Maybe you used to be so focused on the type of man you wanted, the specific list of requirements. And now you're more focused on character and spiritual maturity. Maybe you used to be willing to settle for chemistry without commitment, and now you can't imagine compromising on covenant. Maybe you used to need constant attention and validation, and now you're content to let a man pursue you in healthy, intentional ways instead of chasing after anyone who shows interest.